What's going on, everyone? Pizza Buffet is live for Week 7 in the NFL, presented by FanDuel. I am Rob Pizzola. I'm a pro bettor and CEO here at the Hammer Betting Network. Going to give everyone a minute or two to file in here this morning. I do see a lot of people that I recognize earlier in the chat and some new ones as well. I don't know what's going on with YouTube these days. They're using like your @ handle instead of the name that you've gone with. So a little bit more confusing, but good to see everyone in the chat here. This morning, I see Sam Snead. You almost nailed it, man. Pantera t-shirt, 125-1. I actually broke out the Metallica t-shirt today, but not a bad bet at that price. Seems like you know me pretty well. For those who are new here, quick reality check. I do bet on sports for a living. I do fairly well in the NFL. That doesn't mean that what I give out on today's show is necessarily going to beat the market in the long term. I've been doing some version of this show now going on, I think, 7 years. And the reality is, if I could beat the limits that are posted at this price across the market, I probably wouldn't be doing the show anymore. So I know you see a lot of stuff here, not just here on Forward Progress, but everywhere on Sunday mornings of people firing out picks and this and that. I would just say proceed with caution, especially if it's sides or totals. Because at this point, I mean, if you did have a really good grasp on the NFL and you could beat these markets, you'd be making a ton of money in the process. So tune into our content here on Forward Progress earlier in the week. We do a lot of stuff to get you good numbers. So far, so good from the entire team this week in terms of where the market is headed. But I will hit every single game. You'll see a graphic with my numbers for each matchup. I'll tell you what I like, what I don't. I'll sprinkle in some props. If they're widely available and things that I like. Of course, always shop for the best number, but make sure you check out our sponsors at FanDuel. They have the best number in market for most of the props I'm going to give out today. So really good prices there across the board. Quick reminder before we get started here, Nada Fonzanoon in the chat says, if you are enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. I would encourage you to do that. It's just an easy way. If you do like the show, just hit that thumbs up. Makes a world of difference in getting our content out to other people out there. And of course, I do have my phone here today, but I try not to check it during the show. So if something breaks, drop it in the chat. I'll work it in. I'll let you know if there's a specific injury that I'm monitoring before I, take a position on a game or anything like that. But, I haven't seen this one. Joey Sanchez, I've not seen this in a long time. This is a throwback to like 5 or 6 years ago, when people used to always ask me. I have my Robert Looney Tunes cup that my mother got for me about a decade ago, and it's just black coffee in there, almost done. But that's what's in the cup today. We are not boozing on this Sunday morning. I promise you that. I will be delivering the board with a very, very clear point of view. Thank you to everyone participating in the chat. Let's get into it. And we're going to start with the Raiders and the Chiefs in the early window. Not too much market movement in this game over the course of the week, although we do now see a lot of books trending up towards 13. So if anything, overnight and early this morning, a little bit of Kansas City Chiefs money total across the board, including at FanDuel, is at 45.5 right now. No real weather impact to monitor in this game. I'll talk about weather impacts as we go game by game today. From a Kansas City perspective, relatively healthy team. Their left tackle, Josh Simmons, is out for personal reasons for the second straight week. Las Vegas, relatively healthy as well, but missing key players. Their left tackle, Colton Miller, is a huge one. Brock Bowers not going to play again this week. And we don't know on Jacoby Myers just yet. He got a limited practice in on Friday. But ultimately, I do agree with this market move. I've talked about this a little bit this week. And I see Sam's comment in the chat about Raiders always play them tough. Weird. And that's kind of been the prevalent theme this week from people who are supporting the Raiders. It's not really rooted in anything that's been done this year. It's rooted in things that have been done in the past. I personally don't like to use those types of angles. I think when you look at this Raiders team, they have a new head coach that wasn't there for the previous regime. They have a new quarterback who wasn't there for the previous regime. They're missing their left tackle, Colton Miller, who was part of those Chiefs games in the past. They're missing skill position players. So I don't necessarily think it's apples to apples. Kansas City's profile right now is a very good offense. The unit has ticked up. The offensive line has stabilized year over year. Xavier Worthy returned, add a big element to that offense. They get Rashee Rice back into the mix, even on a limited snap count. It's just another reliable option that Patrick Mahomes can use. And that matters because the Raiders are near the top of the league in terms of how often they play zone, about 74% this season. Kansas City is far more efficient against zone than they have been man. 7 yards per dropback against zone, under 5 against man. So I think that's a big factor. I also think the matchup in the trenches is very lopsided. The Chiefs are going to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. Las Vegas has one of the league's worst stuffed rates on offense. Over 30% of their runs die at or behind the line of scrimmage. Protection is also a problem for them. This is just, to me, a very, very challenging spot overall with how they match up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Defensively, KC's coverage, very stingy. They have the lowest open rate allowed in the entire league. So windows are going to be very tight for a quarterback in Geno Smith, who has about 5% turnover-worthy plays this year. Could see more interceptions coming in this game. Agree totally with the market move. Again, this was talked about several times this week on this channel. From a prop look perspective, I played the third running back for Kansas City, Brashard Smith. I played him under 1.5 receptions at plus 120 on FanDuel this morning. 6 snaps in back-to-back weeks. I mentioned this on one of the live watch-alongs we had of Chiefs-Jags a few weeks back. But the team has been talking more and more about wanting to keep Pacheco going, getting Pacheco involved, this and that. I think Brashard Smith will eventually be a pretty dynamic player. He looks pretty good, but he's just not getting the workload ultimately. And if this is a game where Kansas City's leading from start to finish, then I don't see Brashard Smith being super involved in the receiving game. Running game, yes. Receiving game, no. But that's where I'm at for a prop look on this game. And more, funny comment, third running back under, account killer, LOL. That's actually a very valid point, I will say. Not great for priming those accounts. That's for sure. Okay, we'll move it along here to Miami and Cleveland. Checking in on the market right now. Cleveland kind of in the same range that they were bet to earlier in the week. Kind of an expensive 2.5, minus 2.5, minus 115 at FanDuel. This total just keeps dropping due to weather impacts. We see some 34.5s in market right now on this particular game. I saw the Feed Me telegram with Joey Toons this morning saying that the wind, I can't remember specifically what the term was that he used. The wind advisory in Cleveland is going to end at noon. He's going to play a little bit of the over. I still think this game is going to be pretty drastically affected by wind. There is a Roto Grinders meteorologist out there. His name is Kevin Roth. I don't think he's the be-all and end-all when it comes to predicting weather for NFL games, but I think he does a really good job of summarizing how the effects will impact the game. I'm going to read this verbatim from the Roto Grinders website. The general message I want to get across, the worst of the weather comes pregame, but it's still kind of crappy with some wind and rain in-game. Wind gusts pregame could reach 40 miles an hour. In-game winds won't reach that level. I expect early game to be a bit over 15 miles an hour sustained, gusts around 30 miles an hour. That should drop pretty quickly to below 15 miles an hour sustained and gusts around 25 miles an hour for most of the game. At the tail end of the game and perhaps after the game, the wind kicks back up again, sustained winds over 20 miles an hour. So that's a really good way to put it, in my opinion. Now, with that said, taking a look at injuries for both teams, Miami, nothing like unusual for them. We'll see if Storm Duck is finally going to play for them today. That would be nice to get a cornerback, maybe not for this particular game. Cleveland's got a bunch of questionables leading up to the game. Jack Conklin at right tackle would be the one to keep an eye on with his concussion. Mason Graham on the defensive line was a DNP on Friday as well, and that's another one to keep an eye on. But this one does set up as a weather game. Maybe not the most extreme, but in conditions like this, passing efficiency tends to collapse. And what we tend to get is let's say it hurts teams that rely on timing and deep shots. So that hurts Miami far more than Cleveland. The Dolphins offense is built on speed, right? Good spacing, downfield RPO stuff. But this type of wind makes those types of concepts, much tougher to execute. Plus, their quarterback doesn't have much of an arm either. So I just don't love the setup for Miami's offense. Cleveland, on the other hand, they're not built around explosives to begin with. Kevin Stefanski's offense leans like short to intermediate throws, play action, quick timing routes. The Browns can live in that world and still be somewhat functional. It's also easier for their defense to thrive in this matchup because their front four can generate pressure with four, which disrupts Miami's short passing rhythm a little bit more if you don't have to blitz. On the flip side, Miami's protection, it's just not good. So they've allowed a really high pressure rate over the past month. That's very dangerous when facing this front. That's why Mason Graham is extremely important to see if he's playing or not. But if you can't count on much through the air, this probably turns into a battle of who can run it better. And that's where I think Cleveland's identity fits in this particular game. Top 3 in both success rate and EPA per rush. They tackle as good as anyone in the league on the defensive side of the ball. So I completely understand. At this point, though, you saw my numbers on screen. Like, I'm not going to be rushing to bet Cleveland 2.5. I mean, the market all week has kind of hung around on this number after the early bet with very, very limited movement on the side. So, yeah, I'm not there. From a prop look perspective, this one's risky. Completely understand if you don't want to play it. And there's a lot of moving parts here because of the weather. I played Isaiah Bond over 23.5 receiving yards at FanDuel. I think he is the biggest beneficiary he was at least last week, of David Njoku leaving the game. Typically, Bond is around 40 snaps. He got up to 71 last week. For perspective, if you look back to last week's props when Cleveland played Pittsburgh, Isaiah Bond's receiving yardage total was 30.5 going into the game, where he was expected to get roughly 40 snaps. Now we're expecting him to get much more than that. It's dropped to 23.5 because of the weather, but I still think that the underneath game is very live for Cleveland. So Isaiah Bond over in that game. All right. Keep it moving here in the early window. We got the Patriots and the Titans. We saw more Titans money this morning. This is now pretty much off of 7 everywhere. I guess there's 1-7 minus 120 out there. Total in the game is sitting at 41. This is another one of those games that has a weather impact, although less so than Miami, Cleveland. Not really expected to rain in game, but you're going to get some sustained winds, about 15 miles an hour for most of the game. And as the game goes on, it will probably get a little bit worse. From an injury standpoint, there's one to keep an eye on here on the Tennessee side of things with T'Vondre Sweat. He's now eligible to return from IR. He's been in his practice window, practiced 3 times this week. Draymond Jones, another one in the front 7. If Tennessee is down Arden Key, who's already been ruled out, plus Sweat and Jones don't play, they have one of the worst front 7s on defense in all of the league. And that would be a significant problem. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is out on offense. I don't like that for them. I mean, Van Jefferson turns into the number 2 there. New England, though, dealing with some injury stuff of their own. Stephon Diggs expected to play, but dealing with that chest injury. Harold Landry on the defensive line, ankle injury as well. That would be one to monitor as we go a little bit deeper into today as well. But I guess I understand the Tennessee money from a perspective of if the weather is bad, the game kind of shrinks a little bit. Potentially someone playing the coaching bump for Tennessee as well, now that Callahan is fired. I can't really get here, to be honest. I very, 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 very rarely bet on Sundays, NFL sides and totals. When we go off air today, I'm going to have a serious conversation with myself as to whether or not I want to bet the Patriots in this spot. Tennessee is bottom 2 in adjusted EPA per dropback, bottom 2 in adjusted success rate on offense, with a scheme that has been horrendous. They use motion under 27%. That is 10 percentage points lower than the next lowest team in the entire league. And now they are talking about simplifying their offense for today, which I don't even know how that's possible because it's already one of the least complex offenses in the entire league. It's as simple as it gets. So I don't really see the opportunity for Tennessee to move the ball here. I don't. New England's pass defense is not the greatest. Even with Christian Gonzalez back, listen, they can be had through the air. I just don't think that this is going to be the team that does it to them. Protection is a big concern for Tennessee on the offensive line. They're near the bottom in adjusted pressure rate. Is the New England defense equipped to exploit that? Maybe not. But even as Tennessee's pressures have been going down over the course of the year, sack rates have been going down, the offense still hasn't been doing anything. But the reality is, I don't know where the stops are coming for Tennessee in this game. They don't have a pass rush. They're dealing with injuries on the defensive line. Outside of a couple players in the secondary, they're one of the worst secondaries in the league. This is a very favorable structure for New England's passing game, especially if they can pick up yards on early downs. Definitely the weather will suppress some of the explosives. It might affect special teams and things of that nature. But ultimately, I am just not... I'm not seeing the same things that other people, I guess, are maybe valuing in the market. And someone mentioned it, the coaching bump canceled by Vrabel revenge. I will say this. You can choose your own narrative, right? When you're talking about coaching changes, whatever, everyone individually as a bettor gets to decide what do they think these changes are worth. I truly believe that Vrabel wants to stop this team today. That doesn't mean that they will, but I don't think they're taking their foot off the gas late in the game. That's all I'm getting to with this particular one. So definitely a New England or nothing type of vibe for me. Very risky prop, but one that I did play was Travion Henderson under 37.5 rush yards today. Henderson was trending up. He got more snaps in week 5. And then New England just went back to their usual splits last week of Stevenson getting the majority of the work. I mean, Henderson is priced in this range partially because of weather and the fact that New England's a big favorite leads to more running late in the game. I mean, he hasn't eclipsed 32 yards in a single game this season. He's being priced at 37.5 and still is getting the minority of carries. So I bet some of his under. As much as I love him as a running back, he's just not being utilized in this offense. A good question from NCI 95 Gambler. How real are the Pats with such an easy schedule? You can adjust for quality of schedule. So if you're playing easy opponents, but you're winning the games in meaningful fashion, then you can't really dock the team too much. If you're playing easy opponents and you're barely scraping by, that's a different story. But we'll talk Pats tonight on Sunday Reset. And in terms of Pat Survivor stuff, people are asking me in the chat. It really depends on your availability of other teams. I don't hate the idea of using Pat Survivor. If that's where you're stuck with, I mean, they're 6.5 point favorite against arguably the worst team in football. I don't hate it. All right, we're going to keep going in the early window here. FanDuel, though, is turning up the heat every Sunday with Power Hour, the ultimate live betting window where the action is wild and the rewards are even better. It's simple. Here's how it works. Every Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time, FanDuel gives you a profit boost to use on live bets during the most intense stretch of the NFL slate. The games are flipping at this time. Underdogs are rallying, parlays hit, all sorts of stuff is happening, and it's your Power Hour on FanDuel. If you're watching it all go down, you've got extra firepower to use on your next bet. You just open the FanDuel app between 3 and 5 p.m. Eastern, claim your profit boost, make your move while the action unfolds. It's called the Power Hour for a reason, and it happens every Sunday only on FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to get started. That's FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. Please play responsibly. You must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas and affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, 18 plus in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit rg/help.com. rg-help.com, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. gamblinghelplinema.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. This is a paid endorsement. All right. I'm going to keep running through the early games here. Man, I missed a bet on the Rams today, watching this unfold in real time. I mean, still plenty of game to go for sure. But yeah, never really got the price that I wanted to in that game. Anyways, Saints and Bears is up next. Quick look at the market, and it's mostly been Saints money all week, and it continues to be Saints money as of this morning. Pretty much fours everywhere in market as it stands right now, or an expensive 3.5 on Chicago. Total in the game's been bet down from 47.5 to 44.5. And you guessed it, if you didn't already know, weather impact today in Chicago. Right from Kevin Roth on Roto Grinders, the rain should clear before kickoff, but winds are still an issue. I expect sustained winds a bit over 15 miles an hour early, with wind gusts coming in around 30 miles an hour. We'll see those winds taper off just a hair as the game progresses. That's interesting for live betting purposes. It's windy enough to have some impacts on longer throws and field goals, but it won't. I don't expect it to impact most plays. So we have that. From the New Orleans side of things, I mean, very healthy football team right now. Isaac Yiadom, their starting corner, is the only player of concern to miss this game today. Chicago's gotten much healthier over recent weeks as well. Grady Jarrett's out again, as is Noah Sewell in their linebacking core. But overall, not a game that is super impacted by weather. I'm seeing the Grady Jarrett inactive stuff in the chat right now, which is he's a starter on the defensive line. He hasn't been good, but he's a starter on the defensive line, and that also makes a difference. So for those who didn't watch Thursday, I made the Saints my triple hammer in this game at plus 4.5, minus 105. I think these teams look very similar under the hood, but their margins and have led to different types of results that are a little bit misleading. New Orleans, last in schedule adjusted explosive pass rate, 28th in adjusted EPA per drop back, but Chicago also sits 27th in adjusted success rate on both offense and defense. And some of that can definitely be attributed to injuries, but they are a bottom 6 team adjusted for schedule on offense and defense, and they're laying this type of price. And it's very challenging for me to get there with teams like that. Chicago's also played a lot of man coverage this year. It's kind of the bread and butter of their defense. And they've given up the worst yards per dropback in the league against man, 7.5 yards. Now, that's going to change and will get better going forwards with Kyler Gordon back in the mix. But you look at New Orleans, they do have man beaters on the outside in Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. I could see some big plays potentially, provided that wind isn't too bad in this game today. But regardless, the scheme that the Bears are playing is just giving up a lot of big yards on defense. Offensively, definitely not sold on Chicago's offense just yet. They might look good early in the game, as they typically do. Scripted drives seem to be pretty solid for them. But as the game goes on and they have to play out of that script, it's been more challenging for them to move the ball. They have basically won on turnovers and late game variance. That's exactly what happened against the Commanders on Monday Night Football. And that's just been the story for them. So I think they're a little bit overvalued in market right now. I played some Saints in this one, as you could see by the number that I modeled the game at. From a prop perspective, I played Cole Kmet under 1.5 receptions. Very low number. It was minus 118 on FanDuel last I checked. So the Bears had a bye week before last week's game against Washington. When you look at week 1 and 2 of this season for Chicago, when both Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland were healthy, Kmet played 90% of snaps. Last week, Kmet played 52% of snaps. Loveland went up to 42. Luther Burden is also eating into some of Kmet's workload because they're playing some 3 and 4 wide receiver sets pretty regularly. I just don't think Kmet is a focal point of the offense anymore. And he's been adjusted down, but I don't think quite enough. So I played him under 1.5 receptions. Philadelphia, Minnesota, our next game on the board here. Market's kind of held still since the early move on Minnesota as well. Pretty much 1.5 across the board. FanDuel has a +2.5, -115. I disagree with the movement on this total. I think under 44 is playable, which is in about half the spots in the market right now. Again, please note that this is my opinion versus the opinion of the market. I will be wrong more often than not, but I just view these teams as defense first teams as it stands in the moment. You have a lot of injury stuff to parse through today for sure. It's Carson Wentz again. It looks like Jalen Carter is in for the Eagles as of now. Quinyon Mitchell's going to play after the hamstring injury last week. I haven't seen anything on Landon Dickerson yet, but I expect him in as well. Minnesota's like a completely different team on the offensive line coming out of their bye week as well. They don't get Van Ginkel back on defense, which is one that I would have liked. But overall, health upwards for both of these teams. Alan Lopez says Dickerson and Carter are officially in. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So on paper, defenses drive the conversation here for me. Minnesota, number 1 in adjusted EPA per dropback on defense. Philly, 3rd in adjusted defensive success rate. Minnesota's also been strong at limiting explosives on the defensive side of the ball, which was a challenge for them in years past because all the blitzing that they do, they oftentimes would leave one safety downfield. They haven't really been doing that a whole lot this year. They have played actually a lot of too high so far this year as well. And the Eagles passing game has been notably less efficient against too high looks. They only have 4.7 yards per dropback, which is the 5th lowest in the league this year. So I think that naturally nudges the game towards shorter throws, maybe some design quarterback movement for the Eagles as well. But that puts a premium on 3rd down execution. And the Eagles have struggled this year unless they're in 3rd and short. On the other side, Philly plays a lot of man, one of the highest rates in the league. You'd think Minnesota would be a team that beats a lot of man with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. They only have 3.7 yards per dropback against man coverage this year. It's 4th worst in the entire league. Part of that would be the quarterback play, certainly. But I just don't see, listen, I get you get good conditions in Minnesota. You're in the dome. You don't have to worry about the elements. It's kind of the fast track. But I just don't see the number of explosives, I guess, that would be required to get to a total like this, personally. So very strong lean towards the under in this particular game. I think the side has settled where it needs to be. Eagles small favorites. If you force me to pick, I'd take the Vikings, but I mean, I don't love anything here. And even from a props perspective, I didn't do much here. There's just a lot of moving parts with both of these teams that it was challenging for me to find anything that I really liked in this game. We'll keep it moving along here to Carolina and the New York Jets. So all the early week money towards Carolina. We have buyback on game day on the Jets. And in many spots right now, the Jets have pivoted to favorites. Maybe a true pick 'em in the game, you would say. If you just look at the money lines on these games, pretty much a true pick 'em across the board. And this total just keeps getting bet down and down. This was one that we gave out on the Sunday reset last week at 44. Currently seeing market at 40.5 at FanDuel, some 41s out there as well. From a weather perspective, very similar to Tennessee. 15 miles an hour sustained winds, gusts of 25 to 30. Winds will peak later in the game for this particular one. Injury stuff. New York Jets without Garrett Wilson. Big loss in the receiving core. Without Michael Carter, he practiced all week, but he's still dealing with that concussion. Without Quantez Stiggers, another cornerback. So they're down 2 corners today, plus injuries in the linebacking core. Quincy Williams on IR. Cam Jones not going to play today as well. Carolina, some positive injury news in their favor. Jalen Coker is going to be back off of IR. He's been activated. We have their center, Austin Corbett, activated off of IR. Taylor Moton, their right tackle, full practice on Friday, likely going to play today. So lots of positive injury stuff for the Panthers in this game. I'm going to monitor where this one goes because we get a plus in front of Carolina. I might be interested in taking them on the money line in this game. I think when you look at the weather in this game, this one projects to be mostly decided on the ground. Carolina's rushing attack has quietly become one of the league's best rushing attacks. Over the past 2 weeks, they vaulted to number 1 in EPA per rush, number 1 in success rate. The offensive line is creating space before contact. You have Rico Dowdle seeing the field really well. Chuba Hubbard back today as well. They're hitting creases. It's a really, really good running game. And that's allowed them to control game flow, protect their defense. But you look at their defense, they rank 3rd in success rate allowed. They're near top of the league in every run metric as well. So the Jets, I think this is a bit of an uphill climb for them, honestly, if this turns into like a rushing type of game. And I expect it will for New York. They don't have Garrett Wilson. They could get one-dimensional very quickly. So I think this is a trench game. In the past, a trench game would almost always favor the Jets. I don't think it necessarily does going forwards at this point. I think whichever team sustains the run longer, avoids that costly mistake into the wind, plays the better field position game, probably wins. But again, the Jets are getting love and market, and I think they're just a really, really bad football team, in all honesty. From a prop perspective, I played Bryce Young unders in the passing yards game. I've started betting those in like the mid to high 190s, even at 193.5 right now. Totally fine, in my opinion. He's one game this year with 200 or more yards. And I just think unless Carolina is trailing wire to wire, this is a really good look. And are the Jets really capable of, building a lead and sustaining it and holding it? I don't know about that. So that's it for the early window. We'll move into the late window in just a second. Quick reminder, after Sunday Night Football goes final tonight, you can check out myself and tonight, G-Stack George filling in for Clive. Clive's traveling, so G-Stack George with me. We're going to break down all the games that were just played today. We're going to give you our early reads, our early thoughts on Week 7. That is right after Sunday Night Football, and hopefully the Blue Jays game is final by then as well, so I'm not extremely distracted. But you can catch us here for Progress tonight. It's a really good show. If you haven't checked it out yet, I mean, most people would probably say it's their favorite on the channel, which is just a daily recap and our first look at next week. So check it out if you haven't already. Jacoby Myers inactive. Not great for the Raiders. What's that Raiders skill positions look like right now? I mean, you definitely upgrade Michael Mayer now, but Trey Tucker, Jack Beck, Dante Thornton, Justin Shorter. These are not household names. Not household names. All right. Late window. Colts and Chargers. I've been surprised personally at how many people I know who love one side or the other in this game. And I've kind of just been pretty neutral on it all week. I guess maybe a small lean towards the under. But as it stands in market right now, we're out to pretty consistently across the board, Chargers -2.5. I would give the Chargers a decent amount of home field for this game relative to other Chargers home games. They might not have to use a silent count at home. It's not like Colts fans travel all that well. So maybe a little bit of a built-in edge for them there. This is true strength on strength. Indy, 4th in adjusted EPA per dropback, 5th in adjusted success on offense. The Chargers pass defense, if you adjust for quality of schedule, have been really solid this year as well. The Colts, one of only 2 teams this year grading top 10 in adjusted EPA per dropback on both offense and defense. But cluster injuries in the secondary are really going to threaten that status for them. Indy dealing with significant cornerback injuries. Charvarius Ward was put on IR with a concussion. Mike Hilton's on IR. Jalen Jones is on IR. Kenny Moore didn't practice on Friday. I would think he's not returning this week. That's 4 solid corners. They're missing Josh Downs on offense with a concussion. Ashton Dulin as well, less important, but hurts their depth a little bit. So Colts are suffering from injuries right now. And we know the Chargers have been all year. Still without Joe Alt on the offensive line, still without Trey Pipkins. It's a challenge for them offensively. And that's where I struggle with this game is, yes, the Colts have a beat-up secondary. Chargers have a beat-up O-line. What's going to win out in that type of game? I do like that they're getting some defensive reinforcements. Khalil Mack is back. He's playing on a snap count. Denzel Perryman is back, also on a snap count. Overall, those are really going to help this defense going forwards. I do think Indy has a decent edge on the ground offensively against the Chargers run-stopping defense, but Denzel Perryman getting back and playing more snaps, that's going to help them moving forwards. He's a very good tackler. Conceptually, the Colts run a lot of play action. They've been very comfortable operating from both 12 and 13 personnel. They can beat you in many different ways, but the receiving core is thin, upgrades the Chargers defense. I think that's an interesting matchup. On the other side, Chargers have to figure out a way to get some sort of pass rush going. That's why Khalil Mack's return, trading for Odafe Owe, those are significant for them and might be the X factor for today's game. I don't really know what to make of this. I just think it's fine. I've never really had a strong opinion on this over the course of the entire week. Kind of just wish neither of these teams were playing each other. There's a few games this week, Chargers, Colts, Bucks, Lions, where you have teams that are decimated by injuries on both sides of the, like both teams that are decimated. I wish it was different in terms of scheduling, but it is what it is. From a prop look perspective, Chargers running back, Kamani Vidal, I played him over on receiving yards, 13.5. 43 snaps to Haskins, 20 last week. They trust Vidal a lot more in pass protection, which is very important for him being on the field because they have struggling O-line, but he's a really good pass catcher. It is a great way to overcome Indy's edge pressure as well, getting the ball to him in space. So I played him over on receiving yards. Giants, Denver is our next stop here. And it's been a stream of Denver money this morning. This one doesn't surprise me at all. So I guess like I'm less, of all the steam this morning, Titans, Jets, I don't love those. Denver, I really agree with. They've been pushed out to -8, -7.5, -120 at FanDuel. Total in the game sitting still at 40.5 in this matchup. From an injury point of view, one thing with Denver, health has been great for them this year. For the most part, just never had a bad injury report. Dre Greenlaw, very likely to play some limited snaps today for them as well. The Giants, pretty concerning at certain positions. Wide receiver obviously has been an issue for them with Neighbors and Slayton out. John Michael Schmitz, their center, is not playing with a concussion. They already don't have the greatest O-line. Don't like teams losing their starting center. Abdul Carter hurt his hammy in practice this week. He was limited on Friday. Multiple injuries in the linebacking core. I struggle with Denver because offensively, they leave a lot to be desired. I think their scheme is actually quite good. They lean on motion a lot, play action. They remove a lot of stress from the offensive line. They find good shot plays downfield, but the baseline efficiency for them is just not there because of Bo Nix, frankly. And that's always a struggle when you're laying these types of numbers with a quarterback like Bo Nix, who's very inconsistent. But there is opportunity for success here for Denver's offense. And when you look at the other side of the ball, listen, Jackson Dart played great against the Eagles. You cannot take that away from him. Looked really good in that game. But Denver's defensive profile is elite. I mean, you want to go look at any metric across the board, they're going to look really good in that metric. And now They have a very strong defensive line that doesn't really have to blitz to generate pressure, which is great against an O-line missing their starting center. And there's just much more limited options. Broncos have played mobile quarterbacks back-to-back weeks now. That plays into them being able to game plan for Jackson Dart. Then on top of that, they play a lot of man coverage. The Giants don't have the receivers to beat man. The receivers are just too banged up. So ultimately, I just struggle with seeing how they're going to move the ball in this game. Brad, I know, is joking with his comments about Dart and Scadaboo. Their effect can't be quantified. I would expect that Denver is going to put a premium on stopping the run in this game and forcing Dart to beat them through the air. And we'll see. I mean, it'll be a good test of his characteristics if he can get that done. From a prop look, I did play some Scadaboo under on rushing yards. It was very borderline. It's like the only look I kind of like in this game. It was mid-50s, I think 55.5, 54.5. Again, very borderline, but it just fits with what I think Denver is going to try to do here, which is take away the running game and make Dart beat them through the air. Washington, Dallas up next. Dallas money this week. I can tell you it's not because they're, 9-1 ATS in their last 10 games against Washington. I can tell you it has nothing to do with that and everything to do with who's going to be on the field with this game. Injury report for Washington, amongst the worst this week when you look at the wide receiving core. No Terry McLaurin, no Deebo Samuel, no Noah Brown. It is a receiving core of Luke McCaffrey and Chris Moore. It is a challenge. Dorrance Armstrong did not practice all week on the defensive line for Washington. That is a very big blow for them. Former Cowboy, very good defensive lineman. They're already down Dietrich Wise, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Drake Jackson on the defensive line. So they have cluster injuries on D-line and wide receiver, whereas Dallas gets CeeDee Lamb back, gets Kevontae Turpin back. Their offensive line is fully intact with the exception of Cooper Beebe, who's on IR. The big issue for them is Trayvon Diggs got concussed, not even playing football this weekend. He's not going to play, but they get Kalen Carson back off of IR, which offsets that a little bit. And ultimately, that's why Dallas is flipped in this game. I mean, we can talk about how bad they are on defense, and it's entirely true. They're a horrendous defense through and through, but it becomes a lot more challenging for the Commanders to take advantage of their Cowboys' big weakness through the air without having wide receivers. And yeah, could they do it? Sure. It's possible. They have a great offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, good quarterback, Jaden Daniels. All that stuff can matter, and maybe Dallas's defense just doesn't hold in this particular game. But the Cowboys will commit to stopping the run and forcing Washington to beat them with this receiving core. And ultimately, that's going to be a bit of a challenge. Dallas, on the other side of things, this is an interesting chess match. The Commanders have gotten a lot of pressure this year. Surprising the amount of pressure that they've been able to get. A lot of that has been through blitzes, and they play a lot of one high. So basically, they're content to leave one safety in the middle of the field, play guys one-on-one on the outside, or drop into zone. Dak Prescott has killed one high looks this year. 8.3 yards per dropback. That's the best in the NFL. That includes games without CeeDee Lamb as well. So I don't like the Washington defense with injuries on the defensive line as well. I think there's a game where Dallas is going to move the ball at will. So I get the move to Dallas. Could only play Dallas, I guess. And no props for me in this one, as it's just, I think everything is hyperinflated, but I don't necessarily want to come back on some of these unders as well. I will give a quick recap right at the end of this. Give me about 5-10 minutes to get through the rest of the games. Hunter Renfrow inactive for the Panthers. Jalen Coker was activated, so he'll likely take a lot of the Renfrow snaps. Who gets touches for receiver for Washington? McCaffrey's technically the number one. Chris Moore, though, did run more routes than him last week, and I thought was a little bit more effective. But Ertz is going to be the number one guy for them going forwards. Final game in the late window, Green Bay, Arizona. This one's more interesting than it looked like a few days ago. Just looking at the market here, Green Bay was pushing towards 7.5 yesterday. Since then, there's been a lot of buyback on Arizona. I think there's some sneaky injury stuff with Green Bay, especially in the backfield. We don't know about Josh Jacobs just yet. We don't know about Zach Tom on the offensive line, who's been dealing with that oblique injury. Defensive line, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, those are key injuries for them as well. On the Arizona side, it's Jacoby Brissett at quarterback again. Defensive line still in shambles with players on IR. Cornerback, same type of thing. Backfield, same type of thing, but nothing really new for them. The biggest story here was the major travel issues for Green Bay. Stuck on the tarmac for hours yesterday before flying out late to Arizona. Now, I'm going to give you some just very qualitative feedback. This is not rooted in me going through all these situations. This has happened in sports before. I bet on sports a lot, predominantly hockey and football, but I have bet countless times these types of situations before where one team was really late to fly out and they got stuck in like a snowstorm or whatever it might be. And it feels like that should matter, right? That kind of disruption, you lose your sleep, your walkthroughs are more compressed, you have less recovery time, you're stuck on a plane. I don't think it's catastrophic, but it's not ideal for prep. I got to tell you, I think I'm down bad in my lifetime betting on this angle. I'm not sure it's a real thing or not. I'm just, again, it's my opinion. Just maybe I'm misremembering. I don't know. But I've bet so many of these spots before, and I'm sure if I had them marked or actually took the time, it took me a long time to go through these, I would figure out that, I don't think it matters necessarily. So take that for what it's worth. On paper, it's a much more challenging offensive matchup for the Cardinals this week. They still really can't run the ball. Green Bay's kind of quietly improved in that area anyways, but the Packers do a really good job of limiting explosive runs. They play lighter boxes at the line and they can still win, which I think forces Arizona into longer drives with a limited margin for error, right? That's one thing Green Bay has been very consistent with this year. Rush 4 and they still get home. And not many teams in the league can do that. So it forces Arizona into this kind of state where they have to be consistent moving the ball down the field. And I'm not sure. You look at Jacoby Brissett last week against the Colts. Well, that was a team that ended the game missing 4 cornerbacks, basically. This is a very different story against this Green Bay pass rush that gets home without having to send any extra rushers. I'm still a little bit worried about the Green Bay offense. They are very inconsistent for sure. Maybe travel fatigue adds to that or whatever. I don't know which running back they're going to lean on today to take some pressure off of Jordan Love. They got to avoid obvious passing situations, but ultimately, I think I'm totally fine with where the market is settled in this game. And if anything, I would have more interest in playing Green Bay at this point, especially if we see further Cardinals money later on. All right, I'll just do Sunday Night Football quickly and then some real quick thoughts on Monday Night Football. I've talked a lot today. I'm running behind schedule. Yeah. Atlanta, San Fran, Sunday Night Football. All Atlanta money this morning. Close to that game flipping. Total still sitting at 47 right now. From an injury perspective, looks like Darnell Mooney's going to miss again for Atlanta. Ray McLeod also out. So they're very thin in the receiving core. They're using Kyle Pitts out wide, but Drake London got 16 targets last week, which is insane. Looks like Jake Matthews is trending towards playing. That is a huge one to watch. Left tackle for Arizona. If he plays, I think maybe Atlanta should be the favorites in this game at this point. I have him 50% of his value in my number. But Mac Jones starts again for San Fran. Defensive line is a mess. without Bosa, but obviously they lose Fred Warner in the middle linebacking core this week as well, and that hurts them quite a bit. The Falcons bring a defense that has been very good against the pass this year, even without AJ Terrell for a couple games. And then they also have the offensive line that has, in my opinion, had the best protection in the entire league so far this year. And that is a massive advantage against the 49ers, who sit 31st in adjusted pressure. They are basically playing as a defense where they want to limit explosives. And that makes sense because, they're missing Bosa and Warner. They're kind of just forcing teams to methodically march on them. They can't generate much pressure with 4. They play lots of light boxes. This is how the Falcons attack and beat you. This is prototypical. The Bills did the same type of thing. Falcons are built on these zone runs. They have a low pass rate over expected. They use a lot of motion, some pistol. They create play action shots, but they're very efficient in the running game. And in my opinion, this is not the 49ers schematically on defense are not built to stop what Atlanta is going to do. For the 49ers to be competitive, I think they need to get a lot out of George Kittle. Getting him back is huge, both in run blocking. Maybe they can get a run game going. I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get more Atlanta money later if Jake Matthews gets officially ruled in at this point. I did play George Kittle over on receptions as a prop look. Over 4.5 was plus money. Re-injury risk is pretty low. They've kind of taken their time to bring him back. But you look at week 1 when he was on the field, he only played 21 snaps before he got hurt. He had 4 targets and 21 snaps. He is going to be the focal point of the offense going forwards, as long as they don't have receivers on the outside. So that's where we stand there. Really quick thoughts on tomorrow night's football games. Tampa Bay, Detroit. I don't really understand all of the Detroit love, other than it being a great spot for them. I know Tampa's down several receivers. I don't think I've ever seen a secondary as bad as what Detroit is going to trot out there tomorrow night. They're going to be missing both starting safeties and 5 cornerbacks, including their top 4 cornerbacks, against a guy that can push the ball downfield with pretty much any receiving core that he has. So, I can't get to 6. I think 6 is very playable on Detroit in market right now. I played some over in this game on Tampa Bay, I should say. I played some over in this game. I like the Lions offense quite a bit. It does look like Taylor Decker's trending towards playing, which is big for them. But that's kind of where I'm at with this one. It's I get everyone wants to fade Tampa at some point and these fluky wins, lucky wins or whatever. Is this the spot? No, to me, not at this price. I think you're kind of paying a premium because Detroit is really good in these bounce back spots, and they're really good in prime time and things of that nature. But all those trends from years past, I'm so fearful of ever betting against Detroit. They've never had a secondary situation that is like this. They have no defensive backs at all. So I think that offsets a lot of the injuries that Tampa's dealing with up front. Mike Evans is very, very likely to play in this game. I don't think Igbuka will play, but that would just be a bonus. I really, really don't think he's going to play. Late game tomorrow night is Houston-Seattle. You saw some Seattle money early in the week, buy back towards Houston. We're sitting kind of where we started at -3, -115-ish in market for at most spots right now. And the total got bet down to 41. I'm very, very interested to see what Houston's offense looks like out of the bye week. No Christian Kirk again for them. That kind of hurts them. They had brought him back into the mix. They were going 3 wide quite a bit. I just am really interested to see how this O-line is going to hold up for the Texans in this game. We know Reek Willen is going to be back for Seattle. We don't know for sure on Julian Love or Devin Witherspoon, but both are very possible in this game as well. It's such a fundamentally bad matchup for the Houston O-line. The Seahawks blitz less than anyone, under 19%, but they still generate a pressure 33% of the time. And this Texans O-line has really struggled against any high-quality front. I think it's only going to get tougher for them. So ultimately, tough game to handicap. I guess I would lean Seattle, if anything, at current numbers. Quick recap of the board, and then I will get into a few anytime touchdown scorer props and maybe answer any questions that you might have before I go off air today. I'm going very much out of order here, by the way. It's just a way that I sort my odds screen, so bear with me. New England, Tennessee. At the current market prices, I could only play Patriots and the over in this game. I'm not buying like the dead cat bounce for Tennessee with a new head coach. I think the offense is just way too simple, and they don't have the defensive personnel, in my opinion, to slow down New England. New Orleans, Chicago. Played Chicago. Little bit better than the current market prices, but I would be okay with Chicago with New Orleans. Apologies, retract. Played the Saints and I'd still be okay with playing the Saints at those prices. Miami, Cleveland, in my opinion, nothing to do here at the current moment. Carolina and the Jets, keeping an eye out for Carolina money lines. I'm going to set a price alert for plus 100. If I get there, I'll probably play just a little bit of that. Philly, Minnesota. My strongest opinion on this game would be the under at 44. Sidewise, I think it's settled into the correct range. KC, Las Vegas, I think it's kind of settled in the right spot now at 13. Never really understood. I mean, I've heard nothing but Raiders love this week. And listen, it's the NFL. They could win, they could cover. I get it. But I never really understood how people would be putting meaningful money down there. And it looks like they haven't. And the Chiefs got bet. Denver and the Giants kind of settled into the range where I expected it to as well. I played some Denver. I think Denver's a great teaser option this week in the current range that they're at right now, but not much more to do there. Colts, Chargers is a complete pass for me. Everyone has an opinion on that game except me. Washington, Dallas, same type of thing. Like, I still slightly lean Dallas, but there were so many opportunities to bet them as underdogs this week. And I think all the injury stuff is factored into market now, so nothing more to do there. Green Bay, Arizona. I mean, more Arizona money coming in here. I'm going to watch the inactives for Green Bay later on today. If we still have these -7s that are plus 101 or an expensive 6.5, I may play Green Bay there. Atlanta, San Fran, totally understand the Atlanta movement. And if Jake Matthews is in, I would click any plus money that you see on Atlanta in that game. Monday Night Football, strong leans to Tampa Bay, but I do prefer the over in that game. Houston, Seattle, not much. All right, just a few comments here I'll get to, and then maybe a few anytime touchdown scores. Bryce stinks on the road. That is true. His splits on the road are substantially worse. The only thing I will say in regards to that is, again, I think context matters. This is the best running game the Panthers have had in a long time. They can lean on it a lot more. And it's also the best defense they've had in a while, especially stopping the run. Historically, if you do go back and look at the Panthers, they've been in a lot of trailing game states on the road. And I think that contributes because Bryce Young's not the quarterback that's going to lead you from behind all that often. I know he did at home against Miami last week, but that's not the situation you want to be in at all. Okay. Anytime touchdown scores. Let me just make sure that I have accurate prices. I didn't play a ton this week, honestly. Before we get into that really quickly, thoughts on Rico Dowdle versus Chuba Hubbard splits? I would expect at least 2/3 Dowdle. They said they're not going to announce what they're doing. I'll be floored if Dowdle is not the lead guy today. Floored, based off the way that he's played in the last few weeks. First and foremost, just some prices at FanDuel that I think are good, that are FanDuel only prices. Rico Dowdle is 135, plus 135 at FanDuel. I think that that's a really solid option relative to where he stands in the rest of market right now. Jaden Daniels at plus 180, I think is also another solid option. I think he will have to rely on his legs a lot today with the lack of wide receiving weapons. And again, those are just really, really good prices relative to other prices that are in market. So those are two that really stand out to me from just a, let's say, call it top-down efficiency type of perspective. Now, using my own numbers here, I just want to make sure, like I said, everything is up to date and I'm not giving out anything that's stale. I don't love a ton of stuff. I'll start with Sunday Night Football and just confirm that Mac Jones is still in the range I think he is. Yeah, FanDuel has Mac Jones 13-1. I like that look. For those who have followed my stuff for years, you kind of know where I stand on primetime games and quarterback rushing touchdowns that I don't think are necessarily priced all that properly. Market has slowly started to catch up to that angle, but it's not there yet. So Mac Jones would be the long shot guy on today's board that I would be looking at in the 13-1 range. That's where I would be going. I typically don't give out guys that are like higher end players that are cheaper. I've lost so much money on this guy and I can't help myself, but I'm going to play for the millionth time Isaiah Pacheco at plus looks like 180 anytime touchdown, because I'll tell you this, every week they just talk about feeding this guy the ball over and over. And this is the defense that he's most likely to score against. I think that's a really valuable number. I kind of make Pacheco closer to plus 140. So I'm playing Pacheco anytime plus 180. I also like George Pickens in the Cowboys game. I don't think that the return of CeeDee Lamb is going to completely take Pickens out of that offense. And you can get plus 160 on him. I think the best price I see is 165. FanDuel's 160. That's another look I really like in a high total game. With the state of the defensive line for the Commanders, I don't know that they're going to be getting all that much pressure today. Pickens, there's just no one to cover him. He's going to face the second corner on Washington and likely torch him. So I make the fair value on Pickens plus 131, and you can get plus 170. So here's I hear this every week. Pacheco doesn't get goal line work, though. He still gets the majority of the snaps inside the 10-yard line for the Chiefs. They haven't handed him the ball as much. Maybe that's sort of a tell for the team or whatever. He is on the field every single game in some capacity inside the 10. I know it's painful. You get to the 1, you see Kareem Hunt, you see, Brashard Smith or whatever. I feel the pain that everyone else feels, but this is it. I'm drawing a line in the sand today. So I'll leave it at those three: Pickens, Pacheco, Mac Jones. Of course, if you ever want to head over to our Discord, discord.gg/hammer, I will post all of my fair values for anytime touchdown scores for every one of the primetime games. So for tonight, Atlanta, San Fran, I'll get those up at least 15 minutes before game time, if not earlier than that. Tomorrow, we got a double Monday Night Football. I'll get those up as well. Listen, I feel very shameful promoting anything in life. I don't know. It's just something I can't do, but the Discord is pretty damn good. Early Bird Capper said it himself. So head over there, discord.gg/thehammer, /hammer, excuse me, not the hammer, but pretty lively in there this morning. All right. Appreciate everyone who tuned in today. That's a wrap. Week 7 pizza buffet. If you hung out and jumped in the chat, know that I appreciate you. If you got any value out of this show, don't forget to like, subscribe, even share it out to your friends. I don't know, maybe I hit something today that you tailed or whatever. Let your buddies know. Word of mouth is probably the easiest way that we can grow these things at this point in time. Shout out to our presenting sponsor at FanDuel. Make sure you're betting at FanDuel. It's just a really good sports book and often great prices in market. Special thanks to my producer, Barbara Alberts, behind the scenes, keeping everything running smoothly. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone. I'll see you right back here tonight with G-Stack George for the Sunday reset immediately following Sunday Night Football. Peace out, everyone. Good luck with your bets today.